Good afternoon. During Brendan Dass's on-bank hearing, both Judges Hamilton and Khan asked Law and Rider if the police interrogators were allowed to bluff or lie to the people they are interviewing. Thanks to finding the footage of Jerry Buting being interviewed in a press conference immediately after that hearing, that was thanks to the Emily Matusik Facebook page, she poses the same question to Jerry Buting. What are interrogators supposed to do? Can they lie? Can they bluff? And Jerry says, quite categorically, no. He points out that America is the only English-speaking country in the world where it is permissible for interrogators to lie to the people they are interviewing. And so it reminded me, of course, that having looked at the article by Richard A. Leo and Brian L. Cutler, Richard A. Leo from the University of San Francisco School of Law, and Brian Cutler from the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, that they mention at the closing of their article about the technique used throughout the UK. At the beginning of the article there is obviously the abstract. We'll quickly read that for you. Although the Miranda decision changed police behaviour insofar as they routinely provide at least a nominal Miranda warning to suspects, police have strategically adapted their warning practices so that they do not inhibit self-incrimination by suspects. Thus, Miranda has done little to reduce the risk of wrongful convictions resulting from false confessions. This article suggests ways that criminal defence attorneys can use existing studies about the causes of false confessions to mount false confession defences. This is quite alarming, this next bit. Studies have repeatedly shown that if a false confession is introduced into evidence at trial, even if it is obtained under questionable conditions, supported by no independent evidence and contradicted by substantial evidence and ultimately proven false, it is highly likely to lead to a wrongful conviction. So let's just go back to the beginning of the end of the article, if you know what I mean. This, I believe, is on page 17. I will obviously enclose the link at the bottom. So it's page 17. Another approach to reforming interrogation procedures is to eliminate coercive practices in the first place. England and Wales took this step 30 years ago when lawmakers enacted the Police and Criminal Evidence Act and the Codes of Practice in 1984. The Act required investigators to audio tape interviews with suspects and thereby increase accountability. Following the Act, psychologists, academics and police investigators collaborated to produce a training document on the PEACE, Peace Interviewing Method, and the police developed a course for implementing PEACE and making it standard practice. The acronym PEACE abbreviates the following principles. 1. Preparation and planning. 2. Engage the interviewee and explain the purpose of the interview. 3. Allow for an account from the interviewee. Allow for an account. I mean, that's something that Brendan never ever gets the chance to do. Ensure that the interview, number 4, ensure that the interview is brought to a conclusion. And 5, evaluate the interview data. As noted by Pierce and Goodjohnson, the concept of investigative interviewing is intended to encourage a non-oppressive non-coercive approach with an emphasis on information gathering rather than obtaining a confession per se. The peace technique differs in significant ways from the Reid technique. The Reid technique involves deceiving the suspect about the actual purpose of the interrogation. The Reid-trained investigator begins the interview by confidently asserting that the suspect is guilty and that the purpose of the interview is to find out why he committed the crime, or learn what other crimes he committed, or pursue some other fabricated purpose. The peace-trained interviewer tells the truth about the purpose of the interview. The Reid-trained interviewer interrupts the suspect's denials of guilt and only allows the suspect to give accounts of his actions in the post-admission phase. The peace-trained interviewer allows the suspect to give a full account of his involvement or lack thereof. The Reid-trained interviewer is permitted and sometimes encouraged to use evidence ploys, including lying to the suspect about evidence of his guilt in an effort to secure a confession. The peace-trained interviewer is not permitted to claim false evidence against the suspect. The Reid-trained interviewer may be discouraged by their local department, police or culture from recording the interview, whereas the peace-trained interviewer is required to record it. More generally, the Reid-trained interviewer's purpose is to obtain a confession, and he presumes guilt. In contrast, the peace-trained interviewer's purpose is simply to gather information to solve the crime. A meta-analysis of research on interrogation techniques found that accusatorial techniques increased the likelihood of both true and false confessions, while information gathering ones increased the likelihood of true confessions without increasing the risk of false confessions. Peace interview training has continued to evolve. For example, the Police Service of Ireland adapted the peace technique to incorporate best practices in the interviewing of eyewitnesses. And the technique is beginning to gain a foothold in North American policing. Dr. Brent Schnook, a psychologist at Memorial University in Atlantic Canada and an advocate of the peace technique, offers peace technique training to Canadian police officers. It is only a matter of time before peace training increases in popularity in the US, although maybe Judges Hamilton and Khan won't be too keen on that idea. Who knows, maybe they would. The peace technique is not an answer to all objections to interrogation, for it still relies on self-incrimination, a principle that is abhorrent to defence attorneys. But the technique appears to better protect against false confessions. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I have done a bit of research into the peace technique, done a bit more research into that, so I will be doing some more videos about it, because clearly it's something that if it's being adopted in America and it's proving that it helps to produce less false confessions, I believe it's, as they say there, it's almost like an investigative journalist asking questions. Clearly in Brendan's case, there was never any desire to get the truth from Brendan. They simply wanted him to confess to anything they said. And obviously to completely eradicate Stephen Avery's alibi. Anyway, we'll catch you again soon. Thanks for tuning in, and bye for now.